Now, how do I want to start this? What do I say?
I say welcome, Matt Cassidy. That's a good. That's a good way to start. Yeah.
That is a good start. We're breaking the fourth wall, fifth wall a lot this episode. But yeah, we're here with Matt Cassidy, one half of the ownership group from Beyond Insurance. I know. I guess your wife is
the better looking half.
That too. I was just saying, just home tonight, parenting and being pregnant. But we're glad you could be here. Welcome. You are the first interview at the table at Communal Creative Studio. So it's a big honor.
Yeah, it is a big honor. Thanks for having me. I'm jacked up. It's going to be fun.
So first off, thank you. We say it a lot, but thank you. We can say it personally to you and your wife. You were one of the first partners we had to it. You guys are huge, huge supporters of the podcast. So we really appreciate it. Thank you for being here. You guys are huge supporters of the community, which we're going to talk about later. But first, let's talk about obviously the burning question everyone wants to know. Is how did you two get into insurance and really move into starting Beyond, going out on your own?
Well, I mean, it was basically an office romance, and we both were working for a locally owned agency. We had a mutual connection in Dave Musso, he's a big community guy, and Andy's parents ran a music and live pro audio store, and he was a musician, so he'd be in there all the time, and he kind of recruited her to work at his office. And I was already there. I refereed hockey with him and the other owner for the better part of a decade, and they kind of scooped me up. When I was young, I was like about 21, so didn't really know what I was going to get into for work, and school kind of wasn't really my jam. So anyway, fell into insurance. We went for lunch. I had no idea what I was really getting into. And then I guess it was about 8 years later, things kind of changed in the office, and we had an opportunity. Andy and I ended up getting married, and we had an opportunity to kind of branch out on our own and open up our own brokerage in the city, which we did that in 2017. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind. We had a baby in 2017. We had a new business, and we kind of just, ripped the Band-Aid off on a little bit of that. So
yeah, it's nice to get all that stuff done at once.
Yeah. Well, you're pretty much doing it again, because now you have another baby on the way and you're moving office spaces at the same time. Right?
That's right. Yeah, we figured it wasn't really fair. Like if, this sibling didn't have some sort of turmoil in his life. So yeah, good times.
So where are you guys moving?
We are moving over to the new Capstone area downtown. Right on the river. It's going to be wicked. It'll be a really good place for our staff and any clients who do visit us. I mean, insurance is, getting to be more and more online and digital, but we do definitely have people that like to come see us in person. So, it'll be really nice. We'll be right on the water, and staff can, go for a walk or, ride a scooter to Troubled Monk or whatever they want to do. And yeah, it'll be really cool.
Like hopefully after 10 a.m. though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at least after lunch. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you're a bit of a hard ass. Then.
Yeah,
I would have said 10 a.m.
Yeah,
to, not break the law, but as noon is fair.
Yeah. When does it open?
You're dealing with people's livelihoods, I guess.
That's right.
Fair. Before we move on, I just want to do a shout out because you mentioned the other owner of the company you used to work for, and Curtis Nichols emailed me like 8 months ago or maybe back in January and said, "Hey, really like the podcast, great work." And I never emailed him back to say thank you. So Curtis, thank you for that.
Perfect. I'll make sure that gets back to him.
Another official too, which is, Keep Strange Company. We'll talk about that a bit too, but let's talk about insurance. Cause I did say, and I mean it, like in talking to you, when I switched over, I learned a lot about insurance and how it all works. So for you and Andy and everyone at Beyond, you guys keep growing too. So maybe let's talk about that first, because every time I look, it seems like you're announcing a new staff member, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we're really fortunate. I mean, it's been a lot of hard work. I think our industry is a financial service, so luckily mostly untouched by the pandemic. And we were really fortunate that we kind of had been building this momentum prior to COVID, and we were able to kind of maintain that. And yeah, the growth is awesome. I mean, Red Deer is such an entrepreneurial city, and the surrounding area really appreciates, kind of the small town feel of our office. We take a lot of pride in what we do. We try to hire people that are, experts. Like, we bring people in for the most part that have 7, 9, 10, 25 years experience, and we're able to, do things a little bit differently with our office because it's locally owned. We aren't having to follow these enormous sort of corporate structures that work on a global scale for a lot of our competitors. And we're able to be a little bit more flexible or creative or, whatever that environment sort of turns into from an employee standpoint. So that's been really cool. That's been one of the most rewarding things for our office is, providing maybe a roadmap that didn't exist prior, or, figuring out a succession strategy that's unique and a little bit more built around the way we want to build our business versus just sort of being, an RRSP matching program or something like that you get with sort of bigger outfits. So that's been really cool. We've attracted some awesome people and now we've run out of room. So I think I've got 3 people in my office right now. We occupy 1,000 square feet right downtown. And I think we've got 8 of us in there. So it's like you have less than 100 square feet per person. So we're ready to go. And it's going to be exciting.
And I said, what's kind of surprised me is when I switched over to you guys, probably about 6 months ago, I think now it was. And, I was with the same company forever. Like when I lived in Calgary, when I turned 16, been with the same group. I thought I was getting a pretty good rate and I was, but I thought, okay, I've lived in Red Deer for 5 years. I might as well support some friends, support local. And you guys were actually able to get me an even better rate. So is that again, like kind of being a smaller business, you can kind of go after different, I don't even know how the process works. I just say, hey, insure my car, and then you guys tell me, okay, you owe us money, and that's
right.
It. So how does that process work, and how is it a little different for a smaller company like Beyond?
Yeah, it's unique. I think thanks for supporting us, first of all.
Yeah,
I'm going to see how this interview goes.
Yeah, exactly. This is an interview. Yeah, exactly. No, you know what? I think we're really fortunate. When we opened our business, we partnered with a group called the Excel Insurance Group, and they are a group of, I guess we're up to 15 locally owned, independently owned offices that have sort of pooled their resources in a way and allow us a lot of buying power in the marketplace, with the insurance carriers. And so with that, I think for home and auto insurance right now, we have like 12 different markets that when someone phones us, we actually we represent the client and then we also represent the insurance company, and we try to marry those two up in terms of like what's the best fit. And it's cool to see how when you get that much of a market and you have experts at the table, how many successes you can have, because you've got someone who's got, a decade of experience in insurance talking to someone who hasn't looked at it for a decade. And you've also got, 10 of the major carriers in the country, and we can do a lot of good work that way and surprise people. And sometimes it's a fresh set of eyes, but sometimes it's something that's been neglected too. And there's an opportunity there. And it isn't always about price. Sometimes we bring things up, on a business insurance level that they haven't brought up before, or the current broker, hasn't addressed certain areas of coverage that are maybe new or emerging. And that's that's the fun part of my day, is to kind of figure out, where do we want to take our company? We work with lots of cool local businesses. We've got really great support, from personal individuals. And I think that it's been an interesting experience to see kind of who supports us and where do we find success as a group with our customers. And that's the fun part of being in business, I think, too. So, yeah.
Matt, you mentioned business insurance. What other types of insurance do you guys offer?
We offer basically every type of business insurance with the exception of like group benefits or life and health. So we do a full audit. And a lot of people sometimes shy away from the word audit. And it's like, it's not like I'm going in and looking at your, account, right?
Dirty secrets.
Like when we visit a business, we really visit the business, and we'll go up and tour the shop or talk to the owner and hear their story and try to, present that to an insurance company. And along the way, that audit sort of happens on its own. And when we do that, it's a really, really successful way for us to address any areas of coverage, whether it's, general liability or property exposures, which are really common, or we talk about, professional exposures or directors and officers if it's a larger company. And we start to talk about things that, sometimes get left, and it's a really fun experience for me. I get fired up when I'm in a client meeting. They're like kind of walking me through their journey as a business owner, and that's something that is exciting to us as entrepreneurs too. So it's we can address a lot of different things. We like I mentioned with the market access, there's not much that comes across my desk that we can't handle, and that's a fun way to be set up.
So let me ask you this: what is the weirdest thing somebody has asked you to insure, or that you guys have actually been able to insure?
The weirdest thing.
Or like a 33-year-old living in a 35-year-old basement, and hey, I need tenant insurance for my stuff.
Yeah. And I'm like, are you guys common law?
I think we found out we are.
No, that's
up for debate.
Yeah, no, I'll argue that till my death.
Yeah, exactly. Louis was on here. He's got you looked after. That's a really good question. I mean, lots of like sports memorabilia. And stuff, you know what? I'm not really a car guy. So like you get the odd car guy who like spends $100,000 on like something and you're like, oh my gosh, like that blows my mind every time. But I can appreciate like it's fun, but it's like, yeah, that's a lot of money. Collections are neat, artwork.
How do you insure artwork? Like, do you have to get it appraised?
Yeah, so some of that stuff is definitely like an appraisal-based system, like coin collections, or I've had like fur coats where they bring in like an appraisal and it's like a mink coat, and that's kind of interesting. We've had huge like ring schedules, like couple $100,000, on jewelry, and it's like, whoa, I think I lived in like a duplex at the time. I'm like, that is worth more than my house, So,
has anyone asked you to insure a body part before?
No. And I just, I have to refer that because that's like a life and disability question anyway.
Like hands, like I think hands, like whether you, doctor, surgeon, anything like that. So what if we take all of Lund's art that he got for like $10 each from Yisk and appraise it? Would you insure it?
Yeah, that'd be a waste of his money, but we could get her done.
Okay.
Okay. The good news is that kind of stuff is already covered. So I'm not going to charge you for that.
What about the art I painted myself? That's probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, once you sell one, let me know.
You should insure your hands.
Yeah,
that's right.
The very first.
Oh, I don't paint with my hands, Ted.
You need another guy in here to quote that out.
If anyone who's listening just wants to, out of curiosity, say, hey, can I save money with you guys? I know for me, I sent you my stuff and you got back to me and said, here's what we can do. Is that a no obligation service that you guys will offer to pretty much anyone?
Yeah, it's huge. It's no obligation. We don't charge for our time in that way. There's no like fee for a quote. And I think the biggest thing that I would say as a takeaway is, for us right now, our competitors really are like, if I think 5 years from now, it's going to be like Google insurance.ca, Amazon insurance.ca. And so as an independent brokerage, how do we differentiate ourselves and how do we start doing that right now? Like for me, hiring really good staff who are going to like make that process easy or explain something to you that's never been explained so that you actually get value for your dollar is so much more valuable. And then we're doing things right now that are helping that customer experience. So we're about to launch, a client portal so people can access their documents online, get pink cards downloaded directly to their like Apple or Android wallet. Like we understand that we have to be able to compete and offer something that, 5 years from now, is some 19-year-old kid going to call us for car insurance, or will they just buy it on Google? Like, you know what I mean? That I don't know the answer, but I imagine that, unless we're offering something that's going to provide value, that's a pretty tough curve to bend for sure. So to answer your question, we don't charge for quotes. You're going to get connected to somebody that has a lot of experience with what they do. And at the end of the day, they're going to provide you with a recommendation or an audit or something that you can take back that's hopefully going to add value. And you know what? There's lots of times we don't sell the policy. We loop back later in the year, or we're honest that way. It's not about commission dollars at the end of the day. It's about building a good business. And I think that we take a lot of energy to do that well. So
yeah, and I won't make you do the shameless plug, so I'll do it. Like, really, if you're listening to this and you're not using Beyond Insurance, send them an email, give them a call. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And I really do like the personability, if that's a word, or just, the small business. That's what I really like about Red Deer versus living in Calgary too. And I know for you guys or any small business too, is like, you can't really afford to F around or F people around too, right? You know it's not going to happen because it's a word of mouth too. And like you mentioned with the Google, that type of stuff, I think this is one industry where it's really important to have a very personable relationship.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that. I think when we opened the business, it was interesting. I had a few experiences leading up to that. But one of them was I had a friend who had a claim on like a Saturday morning and they text me. And I dealt with it. And I'm like, it's weird that like this guy would have a different experience than some other client just because they happen to have my cell number,
You're telling me to lose your number? I've done that a couple times.
And I think like we started the business with that sort of mentality and we've learned who we connect with as a customer. And we've had our growing pains and it's great to be able to sit here now and look at, we've built up the team, and I know that when people call us now, we've got a great group of people, and they're supported, by me and my wife's passion around the business is huge too. So, we do care a lot about the people in the community, and we are working hard to, kind of carve out a bit of a niche there, and I think it's working. So,
Matt, you mentioned that like 5 years down the road, insurance may look a little bit different. I mean, such a big part of your job is looking forward and kind of predicting what people might need help with. So my question is, down the road, or even right now, is pandemic insurance something that is being asked about quite a bit, and is it something that insurance companies are offering right now?
It's absolutely not offered.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a few very special programs that would have had coverage for the pandemic. I read an article that I think it was Wimbledon had paid, I forget, like $1.2 million a year for event cancellation insurance. And they did that for 30 years. But then when the pandemic hit, I think they got paid out $245 million bucks. So, that was great risk management by the people that run that tournament. And same thing, you heard about it with the Olympics. There was a threat if Tokyo didn't go, the event cancellation insurance would bankrupt part of the industry. And it's a huge thing. I don't know necessarily that there will be a product for it.
Mm-hmm.
There are some aggressive insurance companies out of the United States that are sort of lobbying or presenting a bit of a collaborative approach with government where the insurers would sort of manage a pandemic response plan, but it'd be funded in part by like actual governments, because that's who basically insured this pandemic was the governments, right? So I think there might be something, but I don't know if it'll be in my career, but
okay.
Yeah,
I was kind of curious if that would ever like shift to fall under like a natural disaster type of thing. And on that note too, when we're talking about insurance during the pandemic, I know
you're giving me PTSD. I had to say no to everybody and send it away, and here's your decline letter.
That's why I'm glad that all I do is tweet, because I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. But during the pandemic as well, there are opportunities to save some money. I know one thing is a lot of people downgraded their car insurance maybe to be a casual driver because they're working from home. Is that maybe I just gave away the only one, but are there other kind of tips too, like that you can maybe save some money on insurance during, because this pandemic right now might outlast this podcast.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've noticed the most is definitely we had some people like parking cars or changing commutes and, pretty manual process. And there were some carriers that handled it better than others. Like there were some that were cutting checks directly to the customers, some of them that were, automatically changing their rates. And then there were others that, required the customers to be a little more hands-on, which of course, some people were and some people weren't. And it was in the news a lot. And I guess what I'm seeing more is maybe a trend where we can save money by looking at like the rate of inflation. And like an example would be like when I started selling insurance, I think house insurance was like $700 a year with a $500 deductible. And now like you're close to $2,000 with $1,000 deductible. And I kind of try to look at that holistically as a homeowner, and for example, and what's worth $1,000 on your house? Like, why do you even have that? Like, you're not going to phone me and we're going to put a $1,500 claim in, right? Like, you may as well bump up the deductible to $2,500 if you can and save some money year over year. And that inflationary stuff gets ignored like far too often. Like, I still see people with vehicles with $250 deductibles, and it's like, man, like, you're driving a $100,000 truck and you got a $250 deductible. Like, it makes no sense. Like,
yeah, I got a crack in my windshield.
Yeah.
I want to get fixed.
Yeah. And it's, it's kind of about educating the customer, because now things aren't as cheap as they were even 15 years ago when I started. And it's interesting to talk to people or families or businesses, and families are a really good example, because it's like, okay, what other decision do you guys like collectively spend $7,000 or $8,000 on every year that you don't like look at or talk to somebody about? Like, do you take a $10,000 vacation without, blinking? Like, not a lot of people can do that. So insurance has kind of crept up there for a lot of families. And I think that's where we have an opportunity as brokers, is to like survey the market and provide some expertise that they're not going to get from a cheapinsurance.com experience. So
learning a lot. I always feel old when we have these interviews, like very old, but also mature and responsible, because you think, 10, 15 years ago, I would not find this interesting. And now it actually, like, honestly really is. And it's nice to learn that stuff. But I think we'd be doing you and your wife and beyond. Well, I guess that has a double entendre there, but, a disservice if we don't talk about all the things you do in the community. The biggest one too is, I recently joined the Bullskit Comedy Board that we had our first meeting. You've been a part of now for a couple of years. And I got to say, you can see where the insurance guy in you, kind of transferred over to that board, because what you've done with it and the way you have it structured is pretty incredible. And I was really impressed with that. So what led you to be a part of that?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I mentioned it before, and I think it was really about opening our business in an area that's so entrepreneurial, and we've had such huge support from community, and it makes sense. Like, you want to support the community, and we take a lot of personal time, a lot of business time to kind of get involved in different things. Bullskit is a great example. I mean, this is like an arts improv group that has been around for 13 years, and I used to go to shows and drink in the back and eat popcorn, and it was a fun night out, and it just kind of turned into something where they needed some help on the board. And it was a great learning experience for me, because it ended up that I kind of ran the board for a couple of years, and it was a really good place to sort of learn how to be a really good volunteer. And that in and of itself was a great, give back to me. Like, I got to help the organization, and I got to also like hone some skills that I otherwise wouldn't have. And it served me well. Like, we do take a lot of pride in our community involvement, and we're kind of everywhere, but we're everywhere in little bits, and we're consistent with it. And it's, you're not going to see our office sponsor one event and hope to reap the rewards. Like, we're heavily invested in the community. So
yeah, because I mean, you get absolutely nothing out of sponsoring this podcast. I can tell you that from this side.
Well, I got a Coors banquet, and it's Monday.
Yeah, and I did switch over.
That's true. You did switch over.
I was maybe unrelated, but we can call it related.
Well, I better send Kurt a gift card or something. Yeah.
But really, it is that type of stuff. I know you decided to be a part of this podcast because we're trying to be community minded, and because, you're supporting 4 friends and 4 fellow optimists as well. You're a big part of that Optimist Club. I think anyone listening who's ever been to a ladies gala that the Optimist Club puts on, especially recently, Matt's a big part of that. And that's a big undertaking too, because that is a huge night. It's
a huge night. I'm sad that we've had to postpone it. That's a huge night for a lot of people. I mean, the club, the Optimist Club, have a great time putting it on. The ladies that go come back every year, some of them for 25 years, right? It's like, that's a good time. And it's a cool fundraiser. Red Deer's got a lot of good fundraisers, but that one's unique. It's ladies only, and there's dancing and music and a theme. And yeah, that's a really good one. And you have like 50 guys serving you. Yeah, the club does all the service, and to what extent, like, how good is the service? It's questionable, terrible. Right? Like,
Dustin and I have been paired up before, and we just end up So now I think one year I had a table of like mostly single hairdressers, and
it was over.
They did not get their drinks ever.
Yeah.
Just a lot of bad jokes.
Yeah.
I've always been the most professional when I serve at that event, and I hope to be able to do it for years to come.
What event are you talking about here?
Yeah, he must be part of the setup crew.
Yeah, responsible till what time? But yeah, I think it's amazing. And the other thing I do want to talk about, because it was really cool, and this was my first ever like outdoor distance run that I ever did, is you and Andy brought the secret 3K to Red Deer. And obviously then there's the pandemic, couldn't happen, but that was probably like 2 weeks, I think, before things really shut down.
Yeah, I think it was like March 6th, and then things were closed on the 18th. Like, I think we closed our office on the 18th. So it was pretty gnarly. It was cool to get everybody out, and Red Deer supported it. And it was neat to look back on that, and the Optimist Club supported it in different ways. And
they sent us the wrong way. I think I did a 3.5K run.
Yeah, exactly. The team at like 360 Fitness kind of led things, and we had a whole bunch of other community organizations like put up tables, and that was a cool event. We like tripled the amount of money that Red Deer raised. We tripled the attendance, and then pandemics kind of hit. But I've been thinking about that lately, especially with everything going on in Afghanistan. It's like, whoa, I'm glad we supported that when we could, and it's pretty important. And then you get to see that happen year over year. And that's a really cool part of being in the community here for sure.
Yeah, so maybe explain too what the secret 3K is, because I had no idea about it until you brought it to the club, and then some of us signed up. But it's a pretty important.
Sure.
Night.
Yeah. So the secret 3K run, it came from one of Andy's really good friends. Actually, filmed a documentary called "The Secret Marathon in Afghanistan," where she went over to Afghanistan, and it was the second marathon ever where women were actually allowed to participate. So her and a team of filmmakers went over there. They filmed everything. They ran with Martin Parnell, who's I think the world record holder for the most marathons ever run. Really, really cool. And so part of that coming home, they wrote a book and they had the documentary, but they also created this really accessible 3-kilometer run walk fundraiser for the Canadian women, helping, I forget the exact charity, but it's Canadian Women for like Canadian or Afghani women, basically. It's like, a liaison group, a charity that assists with all of those challenges that women have over there. And anyway, really, really great group to support. And we were fortunate enough to put our hands up the 1 year to kind of help organize the run and bring a little bit more energy to it here in Red Deer. And it was a really big success. So it was cool. Really good thing to support. And then I think we also, a portion of it, the proceeds went back to the Girl Guides of Canada. So it's, there's a local component and then there's an international component with that one event. So.
And the local component was nice too, just with all the businesses too and organizations that you brought in. And the run was kind of around downtown too, right? Which was also a bit of a statement with you being a downtown business.
Yeah.
That, hey, like come and celebrate downtown. It was, I don't know, like it was dark out. It was nighttime in March, but I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. It's funny to see how quick things turn downtown. Like there's scooters down here, the Ross Street patio being open year round, I think is huge for those businesses. And I know it impacts others, but, with parking, but I think the energy down here versus 2 years ago in March is significantly different. And, that's cool to be a part of that. And, there was a lot of negativity around downtown, and it was cool to work with the DBA and say, let's bring something down here that's going to be positive and raise some money and, let's just do it. So it was cool.
Do you do a lot of work with the Downtown Business Association, or is this kind of the first event? Yeah,
no, I don't really. Obviously, our business is located in their area of membership, so we get kind of the odd update. I am currently really heavily involved with the Chamber of Commerce in Red Deer, so that's where I get a bit of a crossover. So, yeah.
Well, and hopefully, I know last year the Secret 3K still happened, but it was all virtual kind of by donation. So hopefully you can do it again. And when you do, anyone who's listening who, it's a run walk. You don't even have to run the whole time. It was a great night, and now that you're hearing Matt, you know exactly who you're supporting, who's putting on the race. So hopefully you can join Lund for that one.
Yeah, I'll do it, but it's going to be a secret, so you won't hear about it. So.
Yeah, exactly. His route's a true secret.
Do not ask me if I
Yeah.
did. That's the rules. So now Dustin and Walsh couldn't be here tonight, but I know they would really want to ask about, this isn't a charity event, but this is an event I think you really made your own in the first ever Waterbury Open on your birthday. Now, we don't have to get into any stories, but you had a great time. I want you to kind of walk me through your day a bit, because going to anything Chubs related on your birthday,
only walk you through it a bit.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Because doing anything Chubs related on your birthday is pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really, really fun event. I since opening the business, I hadn't even played golf since 2017 or something at a stag. So, I was just there for a good time, and that's what I earned. So it was awesome. I mean, I think if there was a rookie of the year, I probably would have walked away with that for sure.
Cleaned up, sure.
Yeah. I was surprised to win the closest to the like the long drive or whatever that was, and on that one hole, I'm like, man, I thought you had to be there to pick up your award. I'm lucky I didn't get disqualified.
We gave you the birthday pass.
The pass, yeah.
It was only, I think you only had to be there if you won the whole thing.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, Matt,
we need to put the jacket on somehow.
Right, yeah.
I was very surprised.
Could have laid it over me.
I was very surprised you won anything that day.
Yes. Yeah. No, it was a great time. I love what the Chubs is kind of turned into. It's cool to sort of peripherally see that, and then to be a part of an event and to see like the Chubettes and, just a group of guys, buddies that kind of turned your regular golf trip into something more meaningful is really cool. So yeah, I was honored to go, and I'm looking forward to the next event already for sure.
So your professional opinion was 27 holes all in a row starting at 9 a.m. The right or wrong choice?
I was, if we could have skipped lunch and the shot that Dustin bought me, I probably would have been golden.
I think a lot of guys including yourself, needed to not skip lunch that day.
Yeah. It didn't help me. But you know what? It probably strategically was like laid out for success. So yeah, it was a great time. I was back at Alberta Springs, and I wore a totally different outfit. I'm like, I hope no one recognizes me here. Like,
no, I think the amazing thing from that day too is like, because that was the first time. It was beginning of June, so restrictions had just lifted, and we're all kind of hanging out for the first time. So even the golf course said we were pretty surprised there was no like real incidents or anything. Like everyone was really good, and if the worst that happens, if you have a little bit too much fun too fast, and that's a pretty good day with 32 guys.
Yeah, I think so too. It was the best part, I'll tell this story. So like, you kind of, it gets away from you a bit, and like I'm like 32, I'm a dad, like you don't have days
like 32 or are 32?
No, I am.
Like 35. Lund can say he's like 32.
Yeah, I'm like 32.
I wasn't like 32 that day. I was like 22 that day, and I the engine wasn't really working, but it's funny because you don't really have that party muscle ready to go. And like I text Andy on the back 9, like hole 7. I'm like, you're going to have to come get me. And then I think like Dustin bought shots, and we had more shots. And like, when we got back to the clubhouse, I texted her, help me, and it's like,
send help now.
Exactly. Yeah. She's like 16 minutes away. Right. And it was a slippery slope for us, but yeah, it's always good when the course guys come by. They're like, you need to call your ride. I'm like, oh, she's on her way. I'm good. Like, don't worry.
Yeah. This is my first rodeo. I'm like 32, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what you're going to say from now on? I'm like 32.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I could say that for the next
I'm like 32. I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
No, we're glad you had fun that day. And I guess the only other thing now left to talk about, because I think there's some cool stories there, is your life as an official. So obviously for me, and Dustin's not here, but working in hockey, we know a lot of the same people. I know both sides of officiating. Obviously, when you're watching a game, they're public enemy number one. But I know behind the scenes, it's a tough gig. So, and I think you were in the WHL.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did a few years there, and
which is, if anyone doesn't know, is really hard to do.
It was awesome. It was hard to get there. I think like I'm proud of it. I think I got some great stories. Like the thing about officiating that people don't really realize is how much like we're all hockey fans, and that's the funnest part. Like you've got the best seat in the house, you got to stay out of the way, but it's really cool to watch. Like I started when I was young, and to kind of follow these same kids' career trajectory all the way through their entire like minor hockey to junior and senior career is really cool. Like, I remember one time being in like, this was brutal. Like so when we like book our time off for the Western League, you like send your days like, oh, I'm blocked off,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was like my third season. I'm like, I'm trying to be a little strategic because, you want to be at home for the holidays. And I think the 2 years before that, I was in Saskatoon, like 2 days or something after Christmas. Right. And it's like, that's a bit of a grind. So I like look at the schedule, try to like, pick my spots of like when I'm available or not. And I knew like Red Deer had a game on the 27th. And I'm like, perfect. If I kind of line this up, I'm going to end up in Red Deer on the 27th and I'll, get to kind of extend my holiday break. No, solo trip to Swift Current. So it's like the 27th, it's like minus 30. I like rent a car. I drive back through Calgary, through Med Hat. I think I picked up a guy maybe in Medicine Hat, but that's like that's, you're basically there.
Yeah.
Like, so, get there, do the game. And I remember one of the kids, was from Red Deer and he played on Swift and he skated by me kind of just after the anthem. He's like, what the fuck are you doing here? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's like, and it's fun, right? Like the players are good and yeah, lots of really good roadies with the guys, and it's very much a brotherhood. I'd recommend it to anybody. I mean, it's funny. I can trace back now my entire career to officiating, right? Like starting at the insurance office was because I worked for another guy who was an official. And I remember the day when Moose came in to talk to him, and then I got a job offer a month later. And it's really cool to see like, okay, all those skills you develop as like a young person in hockey, and you're 15 and you're getting sweared at, or you're throwing out an adult, and it's like, then they're like community people and you like see them out and about, and now I'm like doing their insurance, and it's a really cool kind of community, especially in central Alberta. And yeah, I'd recommend it to anybody. I got lots of cool stories, and it's been all over Canada, some international, well, not international, the US doesn't really count, but, down to the US.
That's a different nation.
Yeah.
That by definition, that's international.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. It's cross-border, cross-border work. And so that was cool. Like it's, I've been lots of different places and been on the ice with lots of like NHLers, and it's really neat to watch them now. And you're like, oh yeah, I remember when like Draisaitl played for Kelowna and we were like in Lethbridge and he like held guys off, with one arm, and like, Barzal was like so good. And then you kind of remember the guys that were nice to you too. And you're like, hey, I remember like this guy was always good to me and like good dude. And it's fun. So.
Did you have a like, now that you're done,
I'm retired.
Did you have a favorite player to watch live at that age?
Yeah, probably those two guys were like really fun to watch.
Only because the age didn't match up with Dustin Moore, right? And you didn't get
I was like same as you. Like I listened to the episode with Brandon Sutter, and I'm like, man, those Rebels guys are so cool. And then I heard them like plugging the loonies down. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Like you meet those kids when they're kids now, and it's so no, that was cool. There were some really good players. I don't know that I have a favorite necessarily, but like we talked to the goalies lots. So that was always kind of cool. There were some good goaltenders that I can't think of right now, but lots of those guys, you kind of wheel by the net all the time and see how they're doing. And yeah, it got to be more fun than when you go like to do a Bentley game, right? And then it's like you got Dustin Moore and you got like Kevin Smith, who's like an absolute truck. And like he blew by me once and like slammed into the boards, like kind of out of control. And I'm like 5'9", and he is an absolute unit. I'm like, man, if I didn't get out of the way, like I would have broken ribs right now. Like some of those guys
that happened to Dave. He came out for a wrestlers exhibition game.
That's right.
The first year they played, and an unnamed player that, well, it doesn't, not part of the podcast or anything, but accidentally hit him into the boards, and he ended up cracking a rib.
Yeah.
And we felt terrible. We're like, well, maybe we'll give you 2 cases of beer instead of the one he gave you.
I forgot that happened.
But so going back to the WHL, is there any coaches, and like I already have a few in mind, that just terrified you anytime you get like, or you knew, man, he's going to yell at me and he's going to make me feel bad?
Yeah, it's interesting that those coaches have kind of, for the most part, sort of transitioned.
Yeah,
It's a nice way to say it.
Yeah. One guy, like everybody was afraid of, well, not afraid of, but you just knew it was coming, was like Ryan McGill from Kootenay. And, you know, it was interesting to manage those relationships. Like the league does an awesome job like training you, but like, you know, everyone's seen like Brent Sutter's, but it's cool. Like I have a fun like Brent story. So I was in Red Deer doing the Halloween game, and you know, the lights kind of come up and we're wheeling by, and you kind of say like, "Hey, have a good game, guys," at the start. And he's like, "Cass, like, come here." I'm like, "Okay, like, what's up?" And he's like, kind of looks and he like points up in the back, like kind of behind the penalty box. He's like, "Aren't you supposed to be up there?" And I look and there's like 15 people dressed like blind mice or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh, don't worry. Like one of them's coming down for the second. I just got to like start the game off here all legit." Right. So it's like he could bark at you too, but you'd get it, you know, kind of the other way. So it was it was fun. I got a thick skin too. I work in insurance. So it's like, there's very little you can say to me.
That is what they say about insurance guys. I've heard a lot. They
Yeah.
say, those insurance guys have thick skin. So don't.
Yeah.
So what about going back to the days of officiating minor hockey? Because I can remember when I played midget hockey and watched a dad from the other team run on the ice and dump a coffee on an official.
No way.
So it's like, what's the craziest run-in you've ever had?
One of the worst was, it didn't have anything to do with us, but it was at a Western League sort of spring camp. Like it was kind of when I was trying to get hired by the Western League, and you'd go down and you'd, you know, spend the weekend down there kind of getting evaluated. And there was it was like a Canadian sort of midget or bantam tournament or something. And there was a team from Quebec, and they were there for like the week, right? And the parents were bombed up in the stands. And so this poor kid from Quebec, right in front of the benches, just gets his head taken off, and he's like basically unconscious. And the parents were absolutely losing it in the stands, like trying to fight each other. The coach for this team, like we had the call and everything, like it was so easy. Those are the easy ones, right? There's no gray area. And this coach like pulls his team from the ice, throws all the sticks on the ice, like throws the pucks on the ice and bails. And then he tried to come back, and you're not really allowed to come back. And, you know, it was gnarly. Parents, like, I noticed it more like in the stands then, like, cause my younger brother would play and I'd go watch, and you'd see the dad like at the far end of the rink, like pacing the glass. Right. And it's like, and they're
it's like an Atom Division 5 game, right?
It's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's like, whoa, like that's someone's dad. Like, you know, that's someone's dad over there.
Hopefully that's someone's dad, not just some crazy guy.
And they don't behave any better on Twitter, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, no doubt. You'd know all about it. And they're behind the keyboard then, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. I've seen some weird stuff. It's like people just come absolutely unglued and, you know, slam doors or like chase you down the hallway.
My favorite is that every play you hear someone, "Come on!"
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a rink and you don't hear that every 3 minutes, you've lost your hearing.
My personal favorite was like the guys that would like kind of meander over to like your entrance, you know, and then they'd sort of like pony up on the like gate and just like give you like the shake your head. You know, and sometimes the mascots do that too, which is like even funnier. Like couple of my
start giving it to you.
Yeah, like a couple of my buddies, like when we do, and this is senior hockey too, but they have mascots, right? So we were in Innisfail one time, and the two linesmen, they're like, they stand right on the blue line, and that's where this door was, and this mascot for Innisfail would kind of be there giving, like, bugging them, and we'd get in the room, they're like, "I hate that eagle. I just hate that eagle so much. Like, he's just like banging on the glass behind me." So it's funny the things that like people do, and that's just like that stern, like just like, I'm just gonna show you how disgusted I am, and I'm like, I make like $40 to be here.
That's why at least you know when you're in the WHL and NHL, those higher levels, you get kind of fairly compensated, and there's less of that.
Yeah.
too. The minor hockey, like, and senior hockey, especially working with the Rustlers and being in the penalty box for those. A lot of respect for the officials that, like, honestly, like, I live in Lund's basement and I do not need $40 that badly to go out and try and keep Dustin Moore and those guys in line.
It's funny, like, you know, I'd never break it down hourly, but definitely like university, you know, you get paid a little bit for your time and you get some mileage, and it's like, okay, you can kind of make it work. Like, it's tough when you take a half day off work and you make like $200 and you're like, okay, I like spent the whole day like from 3 to midnight away from my family and my job, and it's not sustainable with a family really for lots of guys. But it's funny then when you come back and like, I was still working a bit of games here up until last year, and you'd be in the room and there'd be like a men's league right after, and then there'd be always some guy like, hey, like, do you want to stick around and like do our men's night? And I'm like, buddy, and this is like, I knew like the money and time thing by now, because like in the Western League, you're tracking expenses and stuff. You know what it's like worth to go somewhere. And I'm like, buddy, I don't put my skates on for $150. And he's like, what? Like, I got $60 right here. I'm like, no, man, like
it's gonna beer for Dave.
It's gonna suck. Like, it's not gonna be fun. Everyone's gonna yell at me the whole time. And I used to do that when I was 16, and the case of beer was worth more than $150 because I didn't have a fake ID, right? It's like, all right, let's go. So yeah, it's great though. Like, hockey's a community builder, and it's fun to like be on the other end of that sometimes. And yeah, I wouldn't let the bad stories shy people away. So it's a bit of a plug there for officiating. It's been so good to me, and yeah, great people do it. So
it's quite the community too. I mean, you know, you talk about like with Dave and Curtis and how you found a job, and I think it says a lot about you because you go from officiating, you know, you're really putting
pretty one-dimensional,
but you're putting the game in front of yourself. You know, you're working in insurance, you're putting people's lives first, you know, their livelihoods, and even with the community, you know, you put the community first. So there's a really good plug that we might, Dustin might invoice you just for that plug, but
whoa, just save it for the next ad read.
But really, you know, it was really cool to have you here and get to know all those sides of you, because, you know, we do the awesome, fun ad reads that you guys give us, and then we always talk about a bit about, you know, who you two are and why we love you guys. And it's really great to have you on here. So we appreciate you coming in. You know, we rescheduled you a bit, like a Monday night here. But thanks for coming in. Thanks for having me. It's really cool to be here in the studio, and it's a beautiful spot, and I'm pretty fortunate to be here, and proud of being a part of it. And I think, like I said, it's been fun to just take that part of our business and you know, run with it. And we're proud of it, and we work hard, and you know, we always are trying to improve and grow the team and grow the way we do things. And we know that, you know, you have choices, and that's all you can do. So it's fun. It's a fun part of it. So, well, thanks for educating both me and Ted and our listeners about insurance, about officiating in the Western League and in Alberta here. And about the Red Deer community. It was awesome. Yeah. Hopefully thanks for having me. Yeah. Hopefully we'll have you back in 10 years from now, and you can tell us how the insurance industry is then. Hopefully. Or do you think we're all still going to be doing it? Exactly. I'll still be in the basement. Exactly. I was going to say next year, and I thought, no, that might be too realistic. 10 years. 10 years is pretty unrealistic. So. Lastly, though, too, we didn't give you a chance. Like, we told people to send you an email or get a quote. Where can they find you? Sure. The best place to find us is our website, beyondinsurance.ca. We've got a pretty handy quote questionnaire there that you can just fill out on your phone on your own time. You can book an appointment with one of our brokers, whether it's virtual or in person. You can phone me, text me, all the contact information is there. So that's the easiest place to catch us. And we're on all social media as well. Instagram, I believe, is @InsuranceRedDeer. Twitter is InsuranceRD. And Facebook is Beyond Insurance Inc. So yeah, thanks for having us on, and yeah, it's been really fun. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Matt. Lund, you good? Actually, what's your TikTok handle? It's private. Okay. Oh dear.